Now the topic is the production and employment. This is the third topic what we are going to deal here. What is the meaning of the word production and how does it cause employment opportunities for us? Before going into the word production, I think many of you have listened to the statement of the Finance Minister of India, like India GDP has fallen down, the figures were not impressive. This is a statement, and he puts up the statement which is firm or like optimistic view that in some sectors we may get development and all these things. Let us see the statement here. What is the meaning of the word? India is our country. What is the meaning of the word GDP here? If you know the meaning of GDP, something has fallen down. What is the meaning of the word GDP? GDP is nothing but how do we assess a person whether he is a rich or a poor person? Like suppose a person is going on the road, his dresses is not dressed properly and all. Do we call that person as a rich person, or a person who is going on the road with his brand new vehicle and who is well dressed, uses all the latest equipments or accessories? And like in A section 1, he is walking on the road, he is not properly dressed. The third one is moving on a vehicle like car or something and using all the latest Ray-Ban glasses and all these things. How do we compare this one? Who is rich and who is poor? The second category is obviously rich. The first one may be poor or a middle class guy. So we can come to the clarity like the income sources or his accessories, or we can guess them whether he is a rich or a poor person. In the same way, the country's production can be guessed by the word called GDP. It is nothing but the country's income indicator, or the entire income what a country gets through various sources or various individuals or various productions. Everything, total income is called GDP. GDP stands for the word called gross domestic product. GDP stands for the stand called gross domestic product. We shall deal with the GDP in detail now. So we have seen the three sectors now. What is the development, what is the production, what is the statement of the finance minister we have discussed. Now let us see here. The entire category is divided into three sectors. The names are like primary sector, the secondary sector, and third one is the tertiary sector. These are the technical terms. The example of the primary sector is an agriculture. Basic industries like fishing, farming, everything comes under agriculture or the primary sector. Second one is all the industrial activities like small scale industries, large scale industries, everything comes under the secondary sector. Third one is the entire service oriented sector, which was got recently from last 30 years, like hotels, hospitals, IT industries, everything comes under the service sector. Here you are paid for your services, that comes under the service sector. So these three sectors will contribute for the contribution of the GDP. Like we have discussed, like what is GDP? The entire income what we get in all these three service sectors, all the sectors together is called GDP of a nation. We have discussed the criteria for that. Now let us see here, how is the GDP calculated? For example, now take a farmer who sells his paddy of 100 kgs at a cost of rupees 25, 100 kgs. What is the income what we get is 2500 rupees for the farmer. The miller who bought it will again restructure that one, will change its shape, will purify it and gets 80 kgs of rice plus 20 kgs of husk, which he then exports it or like sells it for a hotelier for 3600 rupees. Here the hotelier again takes the rice and the husk, he uses that one husk for heating and rice for making idli and dosa, and he makes the final output of rupees 5000 rupees. Here we have seen two kinds of products here. One is the intermediate product, that is the paddy. The paddy is a basic product which got transformed into the other structure and gave another final product which is final good, the final output, which has product the information or the final output for us or final income for us. Now coming to here, we have seen the series of things. Then how is the GDP calculated here? Suppose if you calculate the paddy income, the rice income, then again the dosa or idli income of what the three people got at different levels, then you are adding it number of times, like 2 times, 3 times you are adding it. So we should not add like that for getting a GDP. GDP is nothing but the final output what you are getting into your hand right now is called the final GDP. That's all. So only 5000 will be taken for this entire thing. In the 5000 you are covering the cost of paddy and the rice and making it, purifying it, everything, and getting the final output here. So this is only taken into the GDP criteria here, not the any other things. Suppose if you take rice and again, so you are going to double it that one, then you don't get the real GDP amount. Here we have to remember, here we have three main sectors contributing for GDP. GDP is nothing but final calculation of the final product end, and we have the types of goods like intermediary goods and final goods. Intermediary goods get transformed into some other shape or another form, then we get the final good. The change of the importance of the sectors. How the importance of the sectors have changed. We have seen the three sectors of importance like primary, secondary and the tertiary sectors. Now coming to the primary sector, earlier the farming was a major activity which was done, and most of the employees, like up to 80 to 90% of the Indians, depend on the farming. In the late 50 years, like 1950s and 60s, we got the industrial revolutions and it got impacted into India. We got recently independence in 1950s. Then we got the industrial revolution. The first 5-year plan was stressed for the implementation of the industries. Then they started to stress it on the industrial development, which stressed the industries to develop, which brought a certain change from the shifting of the people of employment from the primary sector to the industrial sector, which led to transformation of the employment opportunities. At the same time, it has increased the GDP income also, because we have the shift of the people. In a family, we have some people working in their fields, at the same time working in industry, and added advantage for the families. The incomes of the families have increased. But in the last 30 years, the trend has completely changed. The production in the farming has increased to a little bit. Industries have contributed to 20%, but coming to the service sector has contributed to a very large extent, and it has transformed into the highest transforming or sharing of the GDP in most of the countries, and that too in the developed countries it has become a very larger proportion of share towards it. Now we determine a country whether it is a developed or a non-developed, like majority of the people should be in the third sector, not in the first sector, that is not in the primary one. They should be either in the secondary and the tertiary sector. That has become the criteria to assess whether a country is developed or non-developed. If you see in America or in Australia, you have the number of people depending on agriculture is just less than 5. The number, literally the number is less than 5. In our country, if you see in every 100 people, you find 60 people at least depending on the agricultural sector. So now again the service sector is again redivided into 3 categories. The first one is the community services, like we are different communities where we are having that and all these things. And coming to the communities, we have the different aspects dealing with the things. And coming to the finances, we have the banking, insurance, finance, non-finance issues, trades, hotels. So the service sector is again redivided into these categories, and it is contributing to a larger extent to the growth of the country. It has provided a number of employment opportunities. Here you don't need to provide any agricultural crop or anything. Here you are going to get paid for your services, which has increased very in the last 20-30 years, which has contributed a lot to the GDP. Let us see the employment structure in our country. As per the 2011 consensus of Indian government, the entire population of India is 1.2 billion, and if you see the number of people employed productively or usefully is 460 million. The number is very less when compared to our population. Now coming to the sectors where they have employed, we can see the agricultural sector where nearly 60% of the people are employed, which is more than half, and you get the total income of GDP of their contribution from agriculture is just only 1/6. It's less than that. It's like completely, it's very nearly less than 20%. Even you don't get 20% of the GDP from the agricultural sector. But when it comes to the industrial sector, in the last 30-40 years, the span of 40 years, 37 years exactly, the industrial sector has grown 9 times, and it has increased the employment opportunities up to 3 times. And when it comes to service sector, the service sector has improved its trend in 14 times and provided the employment opportunities better 5 times when compared to the agricultural sector. And the people, the remaining people, those who left out of the agriculture, the 40% of people, those who are working in this industrial or service sector, are contributing nearly 70 to 75% of the country's GDP. So we can understand that though the agriculture is a primary sector and most of the people work here, the contribution towards the GDP is very less. When it compares to the number of people working here is less, but the productive output what we are getting or the contribution of the financials for our GDP what we are getting is very high here. And here we have to address the many issues here. Though our country is well developed and it is having some kind of development in the last 30-40 years, let us take an example of a family of Gayatri whose family consists of 5 members who own their own fields. And when they are working there, a family which consists of 5 members like father, mother and 3 children, and Gayatri is a daughter. So here 2 brothers are there who are educated, but they do work for their farmhouse. When they are working for their farmhouse and they are not employed out full productively, and if they have the issue of water problem there and they don't have their own water tank and they depend on the rainwater, they are able to produce only 1 crop. In India we can have 3 crop seasons. When they are producing only 1 crop, so the family have a capacity of the other 2 brothers sending them outside and get them to do some productive work and get them well employed. This situation is called underemployed, or like they are not going outside to do any work, but they are working in their farm. We can't say that they are not employed here. They are employed, but they are not employed to their full potential. That is, we get the situation here is the disguised unemployment. Means literally you see that they are employed or they are doing their work something, but in terms of finances they are not going to contribute anything extra than their family income what they are getting. Did you get the point clear here? Disguised unemployment is the candidate will be working within the family group or fields, farms, shops or somewhere else or in the family business, but does not fetch any extra income for the family when compared to the total income of the family. So this is called disguised unemployment. A person who is not at all employed, who needs an employment, is called unemployed person. That is literally visible for us. In India we have many unemployed people. And coming to the other category of employment, you may be qualified in a high potential, you have done your masters in some subject, but you may be working as a smart person like a clerk or a tutor or a teacher or somewhere where you don't have the full capacity or full potential of your reach. This kind of employment is called underemployment. Though the service sector has increased 14 times, though the industrial sector has increased 9 times, they provide opportunities for the people like 3 times increase, 5 times increase, but it does not cover to all the people, and it not that everybody gets the opportunity to work in the service sector and to get the benefits of it. Only a few people are getting the opportunities and they are employed for truthfully. Even today we find in our Indian roads like many people pulling up the carts and all these people who are unemployed working as electricians, plumbers and all these things where they are not employed to their full potential. So we have the issues of underemployment, unemployed situations as well as the disguised unemployment conditions. Let us see the types of organizations here. We have organized sector and the unorganized sector of employment opportunities. What we have for us, we have seen the different types of sectors, and especially coming to the industrial sector and as well as the service sector, we can categorize broadly those two into organized and unorganized sectors. The sector of organized is, by word itself we can understand that it is systematic, it has some systems, it has some rules and regulations to be followed. Every activity should be having registration under the Factories Act or the Minimum Wages Act or the Shopkeepers Act, everything, and it provides a regular basis for the employees for them, like regularly paid salaries, fixed tenure of the salaries, they have to get the paid leaves, they have to get some facilities, they have to get the minimum need requirements, they will work for fixed timings, they will have offs, like Sundays is not a working day, holidays are not working days for them. Like that, there is systematic rules and regulations for them. In the organized sector, will be provided the bonus facilities for festivals. They should be, if a person retires, they should be given the pension plans, should be given some gratuity amount. All these rules and regulations which are established by the government of the particular state or as well as the central government should be followed by the companies or the industries which are located in the organized sector of groups. Sad thing to say is that in India we have only 8% of people coming under this category of the organized sector. And coming to the other category where the unorganized sector, in India we have nearly 92% of people who are coming under this sector. The unorganized sector, by the name itself we can understand that unorganized, it is not organized systematically as that of the organized sector. Here you don't have everything, the facilities what we get for us in the organized sector. There are no regular rules and regulations, there is no systematic procedure, there is no fixed acts or reservations, or we cannot claim any of our rights or anything. It is just use and throw policies. Like many of the companies hire many of the employees when they have work, and then they remove them on the contract basis. There is no fixed tenure for them. They may make them to work for 1 month or 2 months or 6 months, and later they may remove them without any reason also if the project is completed. In the unorganized sector, the people are forced to move towards their own self-employment, like they start their own shops. We can see many people like hawkers and all these people, like self-management people, marketing guys and all these people who were once upon a time used to work in some industries and they were left out because of the policy of these unorganized sectors. Here most of the Indians are highly uneducated people or educated people who are not reaching to the expectations of the organized sector, and our organized sector does not provide opportunities for all the people in our nation. As we all know, the Indian population is very high. The unorganized sector is having a key role in our GDP, and the total GDP, if you take into consideration, only 8% we get from the organized sector and 92 we get the total 100% of GDP we get from these two sectors, like organized and the unorganized sector. The unorganized sector has to be systematized so that maximum people will get the security of their jobs and they get the employment opportunities well, and which leads to them for the better and the standard of the living to be very high, so that we can say that our GDP also will increase automatically and our country also can get the better facilities. Once, as we have discussed in the human development context, humans should be developed, not the development of any other things. Once the humans are to be developed, these all things has to be addressed properly. Let us discuss the issues. Coming to the issue of better conditions or the other alternatives which are available for them. As we have discussed the Gayatri families issue here, where it consists of 5 members. Let us analyze the issue of Gayatri here. Gayatri needs some kind of support for them because they are a financially poor background and they are having the problem of water issue here. Like if the water issue is addressed properly, and if we have provided certain amount of loan for them and make the family to secure and do some work, and if they can do the investment of 3 crops, like earlier they were doing only 1 crop, if we make them to do for 3 crops, automatically we can get a better alternative for them, and they only can employ 2 people rather than their brothers going outside and doing work for somebody else. They can employ other 2 people and they can generate a new income for the other 2 families also. Let us see the conditions what are required for them. See here, loan can be provided for them to take a bore well or a tube well, or the government only can do the tube well and give it for them, and if not, we can provide some credit for them to buy the fertilizers and seeds and to get the best quality of the output that needs to be done. And in the rural areas where like Gayatri people, there are many lakhs of people who are facing the same kind of issue here, so we can address them by constructing small dams or lakes or having some check dams to save the water and provide the water wherever it is needed for them, so that the issue of water to be solved. Later it leads to the development of the fields, fertility of the soil, and once if we provide the loans for them, instead of the people of small farmers getting clutched into the clutches of the money lenders, if we provide for them the fertilizers to buy the fertilizers and seeds, some amount of loan from the banks are at very low rate of interest, then automatically the people will become confident, they need not bow down their head, and they can work effectively to get the better outputs. It is nothing but the present generation trend is going on in such a way that we need to train the employees, we need to generate new employment opportunities for them, but also we need to train the people to work effectively. This is the latest trend which is going on of the present century, that is we have the employment opportunities, either we have them in other form or we need to change the form of that one. We need to add technology for our lives, we need to bring the better changes for that. So the condition of the slogan of this particular part of the lesson is that new employments opportunities are there. For meeting the new employment opportunities needs, the employees or the workers or the people should be trained to work them effectively to reach that machinery or to satisfy the needs of the present trend. For example, you take the agriculture. Nowadays no one is doing agriculture with the hands or the bullock carts or the buffaloes doing the work and all these things. Nowadays we have machines doing all the work of sowing, threshing and all these things. So the people should know how to manage the technology of using that one. So we need the people to be trained for them for their better opportunities.